Hello, Nope Coach Fam Bam. It's your host, Suzanne Kohlberg. Welcome to episode 81, Revelling in Your Body with Kellita Maloof. So, you're my first returning guest after
Oh
your
my gosh!
initial series. So,
Wow.
welcome back. Now, if you haven't listened to the previous episodes, I'll listen to this one first and then scroll back. But Kellita is a returning guest. But we were talking about the three pillars of your work. The first one being reveling in your bodies. Before I hand over and invite you to add to this conversation, for anyone listening, what comes up for you when you hear that? Because I always sometimes we make an association. When we hear words, our brain gives us a picture. So for me, when I think reveling in your body, crowd surfing comes to mind for some reason. Like being
Okay.
at a show, jumping off a stage. I have never done this, but I have seen it. And, crowd surfing or being at a show, like live music. That to me, when I think reveling in my body, I know that's not what you mean by it, but I just always think, whenever we see a podcast show or a movie title or something, how often do we get a preconceived idea about it before we hit play? So whatever
Yeah.
you have going on, listeners, I encourage you to explore that before I hand over.
Yeah, press pause and actually take a moment and then unpause it when you have a picture or an idea. I love that. Thank you for inviting that, Suzanne. Um, well, the truth is, both of those. One was you said crowd surfing, and one was taking
Just
in
being in
music.
the audience at the
Yeah,
at the music.
yeah.
Yes. I
Well,
feel I can feel the beat. Doof doof just thinking about it.
I would say that both. Well, oh, I love that you gave this prompt. It takes me through another doorway to come in. Um, so reveling in your body, it has a little more to do with your internal experience. But those two external experiences, if one was crowd surfing or just in a doof 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 concert, um, that person would have a lot of sensation, body sensation.
Yes.
And reveling in your body is having, being aware, not just being aware of so that you can think about it and name it, but literally being in your own experience to embody your sensations and emotions, to have them. So whether it's the the high stimulation that you would feel with having a whole bunch of hands touching you and sending you, or receiving really loud music in your whole body, you'd be filled with sensation. So I think that the verb, I'll just say, actually, for me, what I associate the most, I think it's just how I got introduced to that term. It was used in a sentence in a dictionary. This might have been when I was thinking to, do I want to use this verb? And then I found in a, maybe it was in a dictionary and how they give you examples. Try
Hmm.
this in a sentence. So it was reveling. Oh, the revelers at the funeral wake were playing music. It
Oh.
was, and I think it was set in New Orleans, this sentence. And actually, I sometimes use this scene to teach what it means to revel, because at a funeral, there's a whole bunch of feelings. There's
Mm.
grief, and when people are celebrating in that kind of a way of having a wake, and they're playing trumpets, and they're making music, they're on purpose celebrating. So they're having emotions and sensations associated both with grief and with joy at once. So when we are master revelers, and I believe that to really become fully human, I think we come here with the opportunity to become fully human, and I don't think we all fully opt in, because it's kind of a deal. It's kind of a real trip to become fully human, and it means to have access to all of our feelings. And no feeling is abstract. All feelings are rooted in body sensations. So the more I get to have of my feelings, and I rarely have a single feeling. Rarely. It's layered. It's layered. And so I love that picture of oh, people maybe crying and laughing. You and I were laughing right before we pressed record, and I was just thinking, this is a wonderful experience of reveling in my body.
Yes. And
Full
I
laughter.
think I love how you framed it that way, because I think, are often conditioned to do the opposite. Like, we sit for long periods of time. Like, I'm thinking of my children at school, sit at a desk from 9 to 3. Like, you're allowed periods to run around outside, but even that is controlled, not until you finished your eating and not until the first bell goes. And then even if you like are going to an appointment, whether it be a medical appointment or some form of appointment, you're sitting in a waiting room, often in a very uncomfortable plastic chair. But if people say, like, how are you or whatever, fine, thanks. You don't check in with the body. Like, I suppose you don't necessarily want to be a complainer or whatever, but if you're like, how are you feeling right now? Actually, like, my neck's a little bit stiff, my hips a little bit sore. Like, we don't check in. And then are we actually asking because we care, or is it we're just asking because it's the tick on the box that this is the status quo? Hi, how are you? Good, thanks. How are you? Now let's get to the meat. Or
Yes,
potatoes if you're vegetarian.
I, I completely agree that I think most of the time people don't want to know. Most of the time it is just a customary, it's just acknowledging that I see you in front of my face. I'm not really asking how you are. I just want you to know that I see you and you see me in a more superficial way. But when people, and I hope more and more as we as a whole species grow more into our humanity and more into living in our bodies from our body's wisdom, that we will more often drop in and actually, even if someone else isn't asking, that we'll ask, oh my gosh, how do I feel? Because even when we ask ourselves and name it for ourselves, oh, like you said, I have a little crick in my back. I don't remember the others. Oh, my heart feels sort of sunken, literally sunken. And oh, my legs are tingly. And then if we add a layer of saying, and the emotion, ooh, that emotion, oh my gosh, I'm not sure, but I think that's might be a little grief in my heart. That's what the feeling tone of that physical sensation. When we name specifically the emotions, but also the sensations, our bodies hear it and they feel seen. I know I'm kind of separating us from our bodies, but
Yes.
yes, and then whatever that feeling and sensation is, it gets to move to the next phase. It's just like a little child waiting, Mama, see me, see what, look at what I can do. Oh, look at, I'm sad. Our bodies are like that. And so when we actually out loud name, oh, that's grief, it gets to move and we get to move to the next feeling.
It's such a great example, a child example, because if you ignore a small child, they get louder and more insistent. And if you, not always, but majority of the time, if you acknowledge them, then they run about their merry way and whatever. And it's the same with our body. It's like, what we tend to do is ignore it. I don't want to name that I'm feeling trepidation, or I don't want to name that I'm feeling cantankerous. Like, these aren't socially acceptable things, but it's not saying you have to tell the other person. It's not saying but even as you said, just acknowledging it for yourself. Oh, what is this feeling? It's trepidation. Then it can move through you. It's kind of like the other example that comes to mind, small child, is water. Like, if you dam something down, it finds a way around and it's overflowing, and then you've got a real thing you got to deal with. Whereas if you're like, oh, there's a little bit of a trickle, I'm going to get a towel, or I'm going to attend to that while it's small, then it's kind of like, oh, and it keeps moving. Like, I'm going to let a bit of the water out, I'm going to take some of the pressure off. So sometimes just that moment of, what is this, for yourself, not even announcing it out loud. So I
Yes.
often do that before any activity now. Like, how am I feeling, like, honestly, and how do I desire to feel? And it
Oh,
doesn't
love it.
mean that
Love it.
anything's going to change in that moment, but like, I'm feeling trepidation, and how do I want to feel? I want to feel confident, or I want to feel certain, or I want to feel, and even it only takes moments, but it's just
Yes.
acknowledging what is, rather than pushing it down and making it wrong or bad or wishing it wasn't there.
I love that you added in, and what would I like to feel? Woo! Um, I think that might be coming in our subsequent episodes.
Yes.
A
So
little more on
I'm
that.
not sure. I didn't look at the time when we hit start. So
Oh my
I'm thinking,
gosh.
to wrap this up. So, like, I know this is the first pillar of your work. So if you were to
Yes.
sum it up in, like, a minute or so, Susan's putting you on the clock. How would
Yeah.
you summarize reveling in your body for people?
Reveling in your body is having access to, on a feeling level, not just being able to name it, but actually having the body sensation or the emotion, and not resisting it, but
Mm.
giving your body the okay that, yeah, yeah, that's not resisting your own actual physical experience, which completely informs our mental and spiritual and all other levels of experience. To have it, let yourself have your experience. Boom.
I love that, because let yourself have your experience. Because to me, just before we finish up, reveling has a connotation, and this just could just be me, of like a positive thing. So I can revel in celebration, or I can revel in joy.
Thank you.
Whereas
Yes.
when you say let yourself have the experience, actually I'm feeling trepidation. Doesn't mean I'm celebrating it and going woohoo with a trumpet. I'm feeling trepidation, but
Yes.
being able to name it, or being able to pause long enough to go, this is what it is.
Yes.
The body, as you said, feels seen, and I feel my shoulders relax, and I feel, oh, that's what this is. Whereas if I tamp it down and only let myself revel things that are positive or above the line, joyful experiences, it's not diminishing things that aren't what I would desire to have.
Thank you for naming that. Absolutely, that distinction of the whole rainbow of feelings are all welcome, however they feel, and that's how we're going to get to have more of our own experience.
I love it so much. So if people want to know more about this, because this is just scratched the surface. If you've probably just this is like having half a bite of an hors d'oeuvre. And you're like, well, I'm still kind of hungry, and I'm not really quite sure if I like the taste of this yet. Where can people learn? Like, because you run like a scene and entire workshops where people can dive much deeper into
Yeah.
this. So tell people where they can find you.
Yeah. Well, they can find me at showgirlawakening.com, just how it sounds. And there are there's an intro workshop, which you mentioned there, being seen on your own terms. And there's also videos, a 22-minute documentary, a TED talk. It's a playground, really. If this interested you, go play in that playground of
I love
and
that description. So you can watch the shorter video, you can kind of acclimate that way, or you can be like, no, I'm coming to a workshop and I'm in, and it's all there. Kellita's website, make yourself a cuppa of whatever beverage of your choice, and just prepare to be delighted, because it's visually spectacular and there's so many avenues you can explore. So highly recommend.
woohoo!
Thank you for joining us, Kellita. We'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.